Hey there, welcome to our time today where we're going to have a deep conversation. Well, really not, probably more of a fun conversation with our guest, Jenni Keller, who we interviewed on our podcast. But today's going to give you a chance to get to know Jenni as a person a little bit more. Jenni, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's fun to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I am too. And one of the things I love about what we do at Every Woman's Story with Stonecroft, podcast and live events, is that we say everybody has an invitation to sit at Jesus' table. And that we just really hope and believe that as we lean into God's story, we discover our own best story and what we are here for. So that's what this time is about. I have a fabulous co-host that I don't know if I'd do this without. I think I've tried once or twice and it was a mistake. But Eliza Cortés Bast. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Oh, Naomi is being too kind. She was fantastic by herself, but I am so blessed to be able to join her. And you all who are listening or watching today, I get the privilege of serving alongside of Naomi as the VP of Outreach for Stonecroft.
Hey, and I get to serve as CEO at Stonecroft Ministries, which is about women connecting with God, each other, and our communities. So, Jenni, you are the woman of the day. You are the woman of the moment and the hour. Tell us a little bit about you and what you are up to right now.
Yeah. So, I'm Jenni Keller, and I just launched Jenni Keller and Company, which is a leadership development, staff health development company for ministry leaders. So doing just consulting and coaching with ministry leaders. My background is ministry, so just using everything that I've learned along the way to help others. So yeah, just recently stepped out into that. So
Yes, and if you
having
listen to the podcast, you'll know that Jenni is a brave human. And so stepping out from being part of a pastor in a multi-site church to now helping other churches have more of the flourishing that we would want for every church. So that is great, Jenni.
yeah,
Well,
thank you.
Lisa wants to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So if you've been journeying with us for a while, we love to just help our listeners and our viewers just get a chance to know you better by asking some this or that questions. And
Okay.
so we would love to know from you, Jenni Keller, if you prefer mountains or the beach.
Definitely the beach.
Well, definitely the beach. Okay, that was very certain. Please tell us, please inform us. What is it? Definitely the
Yeah.
beach.
I mean, it might just be because that's where I've had most experience, but man, the sound of the water, just the heat of the sun on my skin with a good book. I mean, if I close my eyes and imagine a happy place, that is definitely a place I would be. So,
Oh,
I
now
mean, the
maybe
mountains
that
are
is
great.
a question.
I'm just
Yeah.
like laying out on the beach right now, Jenni.
You can come too.
Maybe that's the question we should start asking is like, tell us what your happy place is. Like, and then we can let people
Yeah.
self-select. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
we'd love to know, are you a book person or a podcast person?
I'm an audiobook person, so it's a little bit of a hybrid. Yeah, I listen to a lot of books. I do podcasts sometimes, but my go-to is just books.
Okay.
So,
You share
and I
what
feel
book?
like, I mean, I'm a big nonfiction, personal development, leadership, anything in that vein. So, yeah, I mean, I just finished a book called Pivot by Laura Barringer, yeah, Scott McKnight, and just an excellent resource for churches. But yeah, nonfiction is actually fun. That's fun reading to me. I love to learn. So um, I usually will listen while I'm walking or exercising or making dinner. So
Nice.
audiobooks,
All right. I'm going to ask you two more. Tea or coffee?
coffee, coffee for sure. Yeah. And I got one of those ember mugs that like keeps it really hot.
Somebody loved you this
It's like
Christmas.
Yes, it's like the best. It's like the best.
It's
And I
like
get up
ideal
early.
temperature. Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, so it keeps it nice and hot. Yeah. Coffee drinking in the morning with my Bible. That's my favorite.
See a couple happy places. All right.
Yes.
Vacation. Are you every moment planned or do you like to go spontaneous?
Hmm. It depends if my kids are with me or not. If the kids are with me, I feel like it serves us all best if the details are planned and everybody kind of knows what to expect and yeah, having built-in fun and built-in downtime. And it's funny because my husband, neither of us are like natural planners, but I just kind of have learned that out of necessity, like I got to do it. So yeah, we're thinking about spring break right now. So that's actually front of my mind right now. So
I love that. And Naomi, honestly, that reminds me a lot of you having been in planned spaces with you. I think if you feel responsible for everybody, you tend to like, but I've also like walked with Naomi and she's like, ooh, you should stop in here. And I'm like, oh, fantastic.
Exactly. I actually, there was once some fun article I read about how many minutes do you need to be ahead of your children depending on their ages, and I believe it got longer the younger they were. And then it got shorter, like if they were teenagers, okay, 5 minutes before you need to be ready with, okay, it's time to go, but I loved that. I didn't necessarily want to give the hour before to be ready for my, toddlers to wake up, but yeah, but it was a great little article.
yeah, that's really interesting. I find with lots of kids, we have four, and I'll think that I told everybody and gave everybody a warning, but I like forgot to tell one of them, and then I just like don't ever like they won't ever let me forget, that I didn't tell them. I'm like, I thought I did. I said it so many times, I just assumed that everybody got covered, but not all.
And probably in your head too, like, I need to say this, I need to say this. And you're like,
Yeah.
of course I told everybody because I thought about saying this to everybody.
Yes. And now that they're teenagers, our family group text like saves my life, because I just put it there and then I know I did it, I've communicated it. So
Well, Naomi, I'm gonna hand this over to you. Thanks, Jenny.
yeah, it was fun.
So I have a question I am dying to ask you. So first of all, even when you introduced yourself and you talked about staff development, that is such a need right now. Everybody I talk to, whether they work in ministry settings or in business settings, whether they're remote or they're working hybrid or they're going into an office, everybody I talk to is talking about these issues of what it feels like today to be part of a staff, to be in working relationships with others. So this kind of relates to the question I want to ask you, because I bet it relates. And I just want to know, like, when you think about a proud moment from your past where you saw your contribution to healthy relationships at work, I just would love to hear that. And then maybe just your proudest moment overall.
Hmm. The moment that comes to mind as far as it relates to leading a staff or leading a team, I led our residency program. We had this 2-year ministry training program for these young leaders, and they were mostly of them coming out with their undergrad, feeling a call to ministry, and they would step into our program to get lots of hands-on experience. And I'm a very relational leader. I think honestly, my years of mothering have really shaped my leadership. And so I wasn't a mom to them by any means, but just what you do for your kids, where you're like helping make space for them and identify their gifts and call them out and give them opportunities to stretch and kind of give them feedback and coaching, and just all of it being rooted in like that trust that you've built with them. And I just remember a particular one resident who his residency was kind of a wild ride. Like he had just been in some really challenging situations, had lost a coach, and was being asked to take a lot of responsibility really beyond what a resident should be doing, and nearly gave up. And I mean, so just encouraging him all along the way. But his dream was to end up and one day be the youth pastor at this campus. And right near the end of his residency, he was offered this role full time. And I just remember sitting with him being like, I am so stinking proud of you. Like, look at what God did when you know what I mean? Just being able to affirm all the ways that he just died to self and did what it took and was faithful and how God honored that. And so just, I think, when there's a relationship involved, and especially over time, just being able to celebrate what God did and celebrate his growth. And I just remember that being a really sweet moment with him, just celebrating that. So, and then your follow-up question was,
what's overall just a moment, something you're proudest of?
yeah, I mean, I guess since we're talking residency, that's probably, that's where I had just saw the most fruit. And so, and really that's inspiring a lot of the work I'm doing today. I just saw so much fruit in that type of leadership, what I would watch happen in their lives over the 2 years where they were getting this intentional coaching and development and opportunities, just safe opportunities to step in and try and know that even if they screwed it up, it was okay, and we would adjust and we would try again. And so just the fruit of that. And I just really believe that leadership development in that mindset, it's discipleship. I mean, this really is spiritual growth, as we're walking with people and going, you have hard times and you make some mistakes, but just the growth that can happen. Yeah. So anyway, I just think it all connects.
It actually makes me think of one of my favorite stories about Eliza.
Mm.
And early on, when I was getting to know Eliza, I got to ask a similar question, and hearing what brought her just extreme joy was seeing this coworker. I don't want to steal your story, but seeing this coworker flourish in a very unique way. Do you want to tell that story, Eliza?
Is this the karaoke?
Yes, I was going to say, this is my
Well, and it's fascinating because when you talk about leadership as discipleship, and I love that. There's a part where it's like really being able to step in and see somebody like live into the fullness of who God made them. Like even if you see glimpses, and I'll never forget, the story that Naomi's referring to is we were out as a team, just kind of blowing off some steam, and we were doing karaoke, and there was this really quiet person that just like didn't really talk much in meetings, didn't really do anything, and just got up and belted it to the back row. And it's like everybody's standing, and it
Oh
was this
my
moment
God.
of like, oh my gosh, you had
Are
this secret
you?
sauce talent. Yeah, like nobody knew. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I remember feeling the sense of like profound joy that here was this like talent that was totally exposed for everybody to see, and that it was being celebrated in that moment. And this person like just felt like they could 1,000% like live into it and not worry about what people would say in the morning,
Yep.
And it was so life-giving for me because I think it was this moment of just like, wow, that person is 100% themselves in this moment, and it's so cool.
Yeah. That always inspires me when I see people do courageous stuff like that. That's
I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm that brave. I'm just gonna say I don't know if I would have been that brave.
Oh, I would not. Why I so admire it in other people. So
Absolutely. I was recollecting a time I showed up to a big gathering and was handed a program. It was like a holiday gathering, and I was handed a program. And before I had opened it, someone said, "Oh, Naomi, I'm so glad you're going to sing." I
Hey,
was like, what? And I opened up the program and realized that there was indeed a Naomi who was going to sing, and her name did start with OV, like my last name starts with OV, but it was not me. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Oh
God,
man.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a nightmare.
It was exactly, I was like, what on earth? Oh, wow. Well, I want to talk about your article that is on the Every Woman's Story website. And for those who have not been to that website, it's everywoman's-story.com is where you can find it. There's also lots of links to it on the Every Woman's Story Instagram page and Facebook and YouTube channels. Um, and this story is about using the right tools for the job. And it looks at the story of Nehemiah. And, we all look at him and go, oh my goodness, what a leader. And what a great topic for you to have embraced. I have to tell you, Jenni, the last person we interviewed, the section of scripture that she was asked to speak on was this long genealogy. That
Oh,
was it. So yours was really suited to the fact that,
Yes,
you got a better deal, I have to say. But
I agree.
also really suited to the fact that you have a passion for leadership and are a leader and a developer of leaders. So when you looked at this article, you really thought about one of the things that really struck me was to not use kind of tools in our lives as though God didn't exist, meaning to to the things that we're doing are not things of, you talked about, they're not against or with, even for other people. It actually, there's this spiritual base to it. So what interested me the most about that is where I am challenged with that myself, to be honest. So a lot of people I know are probably challenged with stopping to pray, right? Totally get that. That was probably me for most of my life. That is no longer me. I am not challenged with that, probably because my children are young adults now. But anyway, now I love to pray and I love to listen and discern and all that. But the challenge for me is, once I have a sense of what the tools are, how to then jump into action. So can you speak about, like, when you have tried to just discern the tools, but you're really not sure how to use them, if it's going to be a flop, it's not going to work with other people's needs, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no guarantees, of any outcomes. And at some point we do have to step out, and there is a faith component. And I think personality has a lot to do with it. I'm a very gut-led leader. Where I've had to learn to balance is bringing in the head and the heart, and making sure all three are balanced and aligned before I make progress, and that's usually where if those things aren't balanced, that's usually when I do get tripped up at times, or I'll look back and be like, ooh, I should have, done it, maybe course corrected this way. But I do think God gave us each unique personalities, and we can lean into that, as far as choosing our tools. So, and I think what you said, I mean, just as you're describing how prayer has become more of a focus for you, it's been through your life experience, and I think it's same when we engage in scripture. I mean, at first it might not feel like a life-giving source. It might start as a habit that we are trying to cultivate, but it's like over time and through experience, and you watch God, the way God does work in and through, and it becomes more of an instant response, a gut level response versus something we have to intentionally think about. But I think the same is in our leadership. The more experience we have, I don't know, the more those things kind of just come to the forefront a little bit quicker, a little more intuitive.
That's really good. Appreciate that. Well, Elisa, I bet you have questions about this too. You're also, I mean, I kind of got a little Enneagram stuff in there with heart, head, gut. So for those who are not familiar with the Enneagram, most of you probably are, honestly, but it does look at, like, what are your tendencies, and is it more to kind of process the world through your emotions or your heart, or through your mind, or through kind of this gut instinct? And yeah, Elisa, do you think it's easier if you're coming from the gut? Or tell me, I mean, as a leader, or for all the folks who are gut types, which would be in the Enneagram, it would be 8, 9, and 1.
That's a great question. And it's hard because, as Jenni, as you're talking about, like, how to kind of open up your tool belt and kind of say, okay, what tool is missing? I think it's so hard because I would probably like unravel mine and be like, oh, I need maybe some brake pads in mine, because being a gut led leader, there's times when I'm like, oh, my gut was telling me go and nothing else was. Like, everything else is like, you probably should do this a different way. And so I guess my curiosity around that is, in your seat as a coach, I think sometimes we tend to feel like, if we want to grow in our leadership or grow in our discipleship, we just need to grab all the tools. And what I hear and what you're saying almost is this, like, man, knowing yourself and knowing how God wired you helps you grab the right tools, because maybe we're not supposed to have such a big tool belt. I'd love to hear more about that.
Gosh, I mean, self-awareness, I think, is the key to so much freedom. If I know myself, I'm a big assessment nerd, so it's like there's so many great tools out there to help you grow in self-awareness, but then to really sit and look at that through the lens of this is who God made you to be. This is these are and all of us have access, to different tools, but each of us are designed to our go-tos, are going to be a little bit different. But I think just knowing that and then giving yourself permission to just lead through as your authentic self, with God's help, of course, I think is just because I'm a rule follower, right? So it's like, I want to do things the right way. And for me, I just find growing in self-awareness and feeling really confident in those foundational parts of who I am, gives me the freedom then to kind of dance and play and do things a little bit spontaneous or fun, or I don't know if that's making sense, but I feel like those things help to anchor me, and give me confidence as I think about how I want to lead or how I'm going to make my greatest contribution in the world. So
there were two thoughts that came to me as I heard both of you. One was that idea of leaning in, going, hey, I am going to bring what prayer or fasting or spiritual disciplines have maybe brought forward for me to do and to contribute, but to really recognize this is going to be one piece of the whole picture of what God is doing. And I hope everybody else is bringing theirs, and let's go see what it looks like together, and not just the solo leader, leading a charge, if the burn, they talk about if the building's on fire, that kind of leadership is a really good idea. It's like, get out now. But generally the building's not on fire.
Right.
And so that all those different gifts being brought and really making that something that's expected. That was one of the things I heard was, I'm a heart type. And so when I bring things forward, I feel it deeply. And so it can feel vulnerable to bring it forward. And, but if I come in kind of going, okay, whatever God showed me, I'm going to give it, but I'm going to learn to really say, we really need to see all of the pieces of the mosaic, all the different gifts that people are bringing here. So I think that might be part of that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's where I think some of the EQ, again, like knowing that my way is one way, and there are so many ways. And the best way to make progress, like you said, as long as the building's not on fire, which is often not the case, is together, So again, just cultivating that humility to acknowledge, like, I can be confident in my gifts and the way I see things, but I will be better if I make space for you to also speak in and bring your gifts. I think that's kind of a trend we see in leadership, that it aligns so much with biblical principles, and shouldn't we as Christ followers be leading the way in those kind of behaviors? So.
Yeah. And we see that in the story